A very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of the Federation of IT Industry Sri Lanka, I would like to warmly welcome you to this webinar on accelerating digital education in the digital normal, organized by the Education and Training Chapter of Federation of IT Industry Sri Lanka, collaborated with ACCA. Also, I would like to warmly welcome the eminent panel members who will be joining us today. Professor Sampath Amaratunga, Chairman of University Grants Commission, Professor Gihan Dias, CEO of LK Domain Registry, Senior Lecturer, Moroto University, and he is also the Vice Chairman of FITIS. Dr. Malitha Vijayasundara, Dean of Faculty of Humanities, Dr. Kitsiri Manchanayaka, Chairman of AIMS Group of Companies and immediate past Chairman of FITIS, Mr. Rehan Uddin, Head of Education, Mesa Region, ACCA, and the moderator, Mr. Upul Dasanayaka, Director, CEO of School of Foreign Trade and Export Strategy, is also the immediate past President of FITIS Education and Training Chapter. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, nations around the world are accelerating their efforts on digitalization. Around the world, many universities, colleges, schools, and educators are under pressure to implement remote learning programs in the background of COVID-19. Therefore, we at FITIS believe the importance of having a conversation of digital education in the digital normal. And we are happy we collaborated with ACCA to organize today's webinar on accelerating digital education in the digital normal to promote digital education in Sri Lanka. I believe today's webinar will discuss what specific initiatives that may be required in the short to long term to realize the vision of a digital education in Sri Lanka. Now I would like to give a brief introduction to FITIS. FITIS is the apex body of ICT sector in Sri Lanka, and FITIS has 7 chapters covering all major IT industry segments such as hardware, software, IT education and training, communication, ICT professional, digital services, and office automation. With the membership of over 200 major business firms in the ICT sector, our core mandate is to drive and to lead the digital transformation in Sri Lanka and to make Sri Lanka a digital nation. With the IT industry's aim to achieve $5 billion exporting income by 2022 and to create 200,000 plus viable ICT workforce throughout the IT sector, members of Education and Training Chapter play a vital role to achieve this goal by conducting ICT career guidance and IT related seminars and workshops to educate the youth the importance of IT and opportunities in the IT field and guide them to become competent IT professionals. I would like to take this opportunity to thank ACCA Sri Lanka for joining with FITIS to organize this event as the knowledge partner. And also I would like to thank the platform partner /Tech Labs, the print media partner Daily FT, the corporate partners Asiata Digital Labs, Lankabel, LK Domain Registry, Luna Labs, Orel IT, Sava Colombo, and Zillion. Our messaging partner is Textware. Other supporting partners AAT Sri Lanka, CIPM, SLT Sri Lanka, Mobitel, ISAC Sri Lanka Chapter, and UCSC. This session will be moderated by Mr. Upul Dasanayaka, the immediate past President of Education and Training Chapter, the Director CEO of School of Foreign Trade and Export Strategy. If you want to ask any questions from the panel members, please feel free to use the chat window to direct your questions to the panel and speakers. So without taking much time, I would like to hand over the president to Upul. Upul, it's over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Vajra. Greetings to everyone who have joined us here. And thank you, FITIS, for organizing this webinar. So it's my pleasure to come on board with some of the most significant personalities in the education sector to talk about one of the most timely contexts that need expert perception and insight. As we all know, the schools, private and state educational institutes are closed all across the world due to COVID-19 pandemic, leaving all of us to understand the benefits of adaptive learning, online education as a replacement for the traditional classroom. In today's context, in this new normal, even in Sri Lanka, the education has changed dramatically with the distinctive rising of e-learning, whereby teaching is undertaken remotely and on digital platforms. So today, we are going to talk about different aspects of digital education with heavy emphasis on teaching and learning. So each speaker will do a presentation followed by questions. At the end, I can pick some questions posted by attendees of webinar and direct them to the speakers. Without further ado, let me now invite our keynote speaker of today's webinar, Professor Sampath Amaratunga, the Chairman, the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka, to start the session. He's going to talk about the educational policy of government with regard to digital education and future direction in the digital education. Over to you, Professor Amaratunga.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank all organizers, including Mr. Aruna, for giving me the opportunity to talk at this very important webinar. So, as a case study, I would like to present the present situation, how we started after closing down universities on the 13th of March and what is happening today. So we started from zero, all public universities. So I have all information, data, and I'm going to present this publicly today. So what I want to tell you openly, even though we are a country with $4,000 US per capita, we are well behind the usage of technology in education compared to other countries in our range. So we were lagged behind the situation. Actually, we have to work and operate our system. So I would like to start my slides. This is from 23rd March, after 1 week of closing universities, and up to 31st of March, and all information from LEARN. LEARN is another institution coming under University Grants Commission, and this all information collected by Professor Ragel of Peradeniya, and also who is a consultant of LEARN. Please go to the first slide, please. State universities, this is the abstract in bullet format. State universities had the required minimum infrastructure for delivering courses online when COVID-19 hit us. This is next slide. You can see activities in operation. You can see week by week, very much important information are here. The first two bars, no, little higher. I'm still at the first one, first bar charts. This is little speed. That's right, yes. 23rd of March 2020 to 29th 3rd 2020, you can see the activities taken place. This is within 10 days of closing down universities. Before that, we were zero. You can see participants came to online work is 19,640, and sessions we have conducted massive amount. You can see the development, and the last two bars, that is 25th of May to 31st of May, this is unbelievable in our public university system. You can see participants operated online is 354,000, and you can see the sessions taken place is around 8,000. So gradual development, this was lacking in our system. I would say, since we have not concerned this distance learning part in public universities, we couldn't eradicate ragging, most importantly, I would say, and the only methodology of teaching we have experienced is face-to-face classes. So you can see most of the problems in our system can be solved by using high technology. This is very much important. You can see 15 public universities from again 23rd of March to date. This is very much important. The first row for Colombo, then Eastern, then Jaffna, Kelaniya, Moratuwa, Open University, Peradeniya, Rajarata, Ruhuna, Sabaragamuwa, Southeastern, Srijawardhanapura, Uwavellassa, Visual and Performing Arts, and Wayamba. So now we have a methodology to see who are performing well. Those who are not performing will be, presented to everybody, and this is now open information everywhere. So you can see Colombo is doing very well, and at the next stage, Moratuwa, Kelaniya, even Jaffna, they are doing very well. Peradeniya, of course. So you can see which universities are performing well under this online teaching methodology. There is another fact that we have to understand. Some of the universities have closed during their exams. So because of that, they couldn't start their lecturing part, but they have now again started lecturing without having their exam. Second place at all universities. Again, Colombo is doing very well, and Moratuwa, Peradeniya, they are doing very well. Lot of activities are taking place. For the first time in our public university system, now we are considering performance. Only because of this online teaching, we are now in a position to understand the performance of each and every university, each and every faculty, each and every department and personalities. Next slide. This is very much important. We are monitoring everybody in the system. You can see this is vice chancellors who are online. How many seminars they have conducted, whether they have conducted their Senate meetings, whether they have conducted their council meetings, everything now on data format. So we are now following up what is happening in the system. Next slide, please. Okay, this is, we have divided the whole system into 3 sections. You can see this is before lockdown. We have conducted only 28 sessions. Participants only 194. From 9th of March to 15th of March, it was very low. You can see this is what I have explained. Being 4,000 US dollars per annum, the performance of online education in our country, in public universities especially, we were in the bottom of the technology. So next one, 16th of March to 22nd of March, again you can see just 144, just 1660 participants. But you can see today, recent 2 weeks, that is massive, and sessions we have conducted nearly 8,500 and 354 come online, and we are performing very well even under a lot of problems. I would like to explain those at end of this session. This is very much important for all of us. You can see this is academic area by area. The first line is agriculture. Next line is arts. Then you get again arts. The second one is allied health sciences. Sorry. The third one is arts. Fourth, engineering. You don't believe art students are online more than engineering. This is unbelievable. You know, in our public university system, everybody criticize generally arts faculties because most of the faculties are not up to the standards of employability. 75% of faculties are less than 30%, I mean the employability ratio in arts. But look at today, when you give online, when you give technology to this liberal arts and arts faculties and social sciences, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Even now arts faculties are doing well than engineering, science and management. This is unbelievable. Please go to the next slide, please. So law is there, IT is there. So you can now you can understand actually which faculties are now up to date. This is again same analysis by activities of each discipline. Can you see again arts? Unbelievably, it is more than engineering. And you can see the last before is science, which is second highest, and next is management. So nobody understands now how these arts faculties are doing this much of work. Please, next slide, please. You can see state universities comparison of number of LMS users of similar disciplines from different universities. You can see if you take science, the yellow color one, you can understand now who is doing well. Colombo is doing a bigger part. Then Peradeniya, then Kelaniya, Ruhuna, Eastern University, and Sri Jayawardhanapura. So now we have data to see who is doing their work. So we do follow up. Actually, this report I get every week from Learn, and every week I have to send this full report to His Excellency, and he is doing the follow-up, and sometimes he directly question why this is not doing well, something like that. So you can see arts are there. Again, Colombo is doing very well. Then science You can see the yellow, the pink color, management and engineering also there. When it is come to engineering, Peradeniya is doing very well compared to all other places. And Sri Jayawardhanapura engineering also there. And you can see IT, Colombo again doing very well, and technology and agriculture, so and arts also there. So they are doing a very well a follow-up. Please go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Again, state universities, comparison of number of LMS activities. You can see University of Colombo has performed the most number of LMS activities under science, medicine, information technology and law. University of Ruhuna has performed the highest number of activities under arts and management. So this may vary from week to week. University of Peradeniya has performed the most number of LMS activities under engineering, allied health sciences and agriculture disciplines. University of Sri Jayawardhanapura has recorded highest number of user activities under technology stream. Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. So we have done a need assessment. This is very much important to understand what is our situation. So we have conducted a need assessment in all public universities. So actually I recommend this to have in non-state sector as well. Then we can top up what is lagging behind. So you can see this red part is the required level and the available level is there. You can see starting from Eastern University, they have only 50% to run the online platform. There are servers, there are computer centers, so many things. You can see Open University, they have only 30%. And Rajarata, they have 60%. Sabaragamuwa is good and they are nearly 80%. Southeastern University, Colombo is more than 55%, but that is not enough. So Jaffna, very good, 80%. Kelaniya, more than 80. You can see Moratuwa, so on. And this is very much important. Why this is important? Now this, we are going to get a huge grant from Asian Development Bank to Sri Lanka to top up this requirement. So far we were not considered. These are as necessary things. So very soon I have already prepared the proposal and submitted, and we are having continuous discussions with Asian Development Bank. And my opinion is not only this public system, universities, even non-state sector is going to be benefited by this the ADB grant, and we are going to top up what is needed in our system. So you can clearly see what is important. Please, next slide, please. This is availability of IT infrastructure. From the 15 state universities, three universities have 20% or less IT infrastructure facilities. Peradeniya, Rajarata, Visual and Performing Arts. And UGC doesn't know before this COVID-19 what is the situation of infrastructure of IT in public universities. We are spending money, we import computers, we expand bandwidth and so many things, but nobody knows what is the required level. Everybody request and invest, but you can see now, we are very much below the requirement. So except 5 universities, Moratuwa, Eastern University, Sabaragamuwa, Uva and Wayamba, all the other have less than 50%. You can see, as a country, when it is come to higher education, we have not concerned about these things. Now, because of this COVID-19 pandemic situation, now the higher education have now turned to a different chapter, and when it is come to online distance learning and continuation of education, now we are very much concerned, we are very much focused, and we are going to have a continuous education system in our country, including public and non-state sector. Please go to the next slide, please. Okay, look at this Wi-Fi coverage. You can see Eastern just 40%. Open University, even though they have very low server facilities, they have this facility more than 80%. You can see Rajarata, Sabaragamuwa. When you have good Wi-Fi facilities, you have less problems because students can come online and they can work online and they have leisure time they can spend online. But if you are failed to provide good online facility, Wi-Fi and everything, you get enormous problems from students. So red part is requirement and the other is available. Thank you very much. I would like to mention here, in public universities, we have nearly 125,000 students. 75,000 students, they are coming under the poverty line. Their annual income of parents is less than 500,000 rupees. So if you take per month income level, it is 41,600. So this is the ceiling, but most of them, majority of them, they have less than 25,000 rupees per month. So when you are dealing with a community like this, when people don't have much money, even though they buy a computer or a smartphone, the biggest problem is data. How can they come online? So in order to overcome this problem, when we start this online teaching, I have explained this to His Excellency the President. So within 2 days' time, having discussions with all service providers, His Excellency gave me a confidence of continuing this education, because all providers promise to give free data when they come online for their own websites of universities. So even today, these thousands of public university students, 24 hours given free data to come on LMS. So because of this only we are running this, otherwise we are not in a position. Even if you take the non-state sector, the situation is same. Majority are on government loan scheme. They are not from wealthy families. 50% or 60% they are on government loans. So in future, we have to think about how to provide data. And also the UGC requested His Excellency to consider some kind of manufacturing computers in our country for a very low price, and it is now happening. Actually, UGC is to submit information about the capacities what we need to His Excellency's office very soon, in order to start some kind of manufacturing computers in our country to facilitate everybody, not only public university students. This is including non-state sector. So thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Professor Amaratunga, for your insightful and informative presentation. It was very impressive to know your great initiatives and the progress made by the government to make digital education popular in Sri Lanka. So once again, thank you very much for your presentation. Now, I'm moving on to our next speaker, the Professor Gihan Dias, the Vice Chairman of FITIS, Professor at University of Maratua, and the CEO of LK Domain Registry. So he's going to talk about the solutions and the digital infrastructure needed for the future digital learning. So over to you, Professor Dias, for your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my topic today is digital learning solutions and infrastructure. And so I'd like to thank all the organizers of this event. And I think just before me, Professor Sampath Amaratunga talked about some of the achievements in the state university system. But I will not be talking specifically about the state university system, but I will try to talk about generally digital learning. Right. So what is digital learning? So this is, I mean, first of all, when you talk about something digital education, I will call it digital learning maybe. We have to first try to figure out, okay, what are we talking about? And we can say that digital learning is using digital technologies to make the teaching learning experience better. Basically, finally, we are not so worried about teaching. We are worried about learning, right? Because you can be the most, do the most fancy teaching in the world. But if your students don't learn, then of course, there is no point talking about teaching. So we have to improve the learning. Now, why use digital, right? Why digital? So some people will actually have that very same question. Why is it that taking a piece of chalk and getting in front of a blackboard and teaching, isn't that the best method? Why is this all this digital stuff? What's the reason for it? So one answer you might give is it's there. I mean, we have all these fancy technology. We have Teams. We have all these different technologies are there. We have cameras. We have microphones. We have all these things. Why not use them? But I think that's not the right answer. We can think of another answer which might be actually quite relevant these days. Why use digital? Because we can't teach face-to-face these days, right? We have a lockdown, or we had a lockdown, and we were not able to reach our students. So in that case, what can we do? But still, I don't think that's a correct answer. Right now, we have at the end of the lockdown. We should be now planning what should we do after this, not what should we do because we are forced to do it. What should we do because digital learning is better? So let's try to look at why use digital, why is it better? And I'm not trying to give, I'm not going to give a full answer to that. I think that will take a long time, but I will just sort of look at a few things and maybe you can figure out whether it is better or not. So where does digital learning happen? Right? What is digital learning? Where does it happen? Well, we could say that digital learning happens in the classroom, right? And we have been using digital learning in the classroom for around 30 years, 25 years, 30 years now. We have been using PowerPoint slides, right? We have been using computers. In almost any place I have been to, private sector, public sector, having an overhead projector where you can plug in a computer and show PowerPoint slides is standard. We have recorded lectures. We record the lectures and make it available later. So a lot of this stuff is actually already there in the classroom. Then in the campus, what do I mean in the campus? The students may not be in the classroom, but they may be somewhere on campus and they use the facilities provided by the institution to do digital learning. They can be in a lab, they can be in a digital classroom where instead of being in front of a lecturer, they are in front of a screen and the lecturer's face or something else may be on the screen. So we can have digital learning in the campus. What else? We can have digital. When does digital learning happen? In the classroom, in the campus, at home or a boarding, we talked about, in a telecenter or a learning center. And then we say on the bus or anywhere else where we can do digital learning. So we can also very briefly look at types of learning. So when you say learning, people sometimes say, oh, we need to have the teacher and the student active at the same time. So the teacher and the student should be there at the same time. In a traditional classroom or online lecture, ideally interactive. But even online lecture we can record and have people do it later. You can have an interactive session, but when you say something is interactive, is it really interactive? Are most of our lectures interactive, or do we just talk and do the students just sit there and listen, or maybe sit there and sleep, whatever it is? And then we have asynchronous, where the teacher and student work at different times. So when we say digital learning, e-learning, we should also look at that mode. And that can be quite simple as making some PowerPoint slides available. In fact, it can be the old-fashioned way of printing out the lecture notes and giving it to the students so that they can read the lecture notes. We've been doing that for even 50 years ago. Then we can have a recorded video which students can do. We can create content, animations, and all sorts of things which the students can do. We can have digital labs. So there are many other asynchronous modes, but both of these are mainly teacher-led. We also have student-centered learning, where the center is the student, where we have things like directed and independent study, discussions and group learning, student-generated content like student-generated lessons, comments, assessments. These are all areas which we haven't really explored much. Not in Sri Lanka, and in fact in many other countries as well. Still, although these techniques have been available, very few people have been really using it. So we can consider how we can use it, and digital systems make it much easier for students to generate content, do discussions at home, wherever, and for people to do directed and independent study. Okay, so we are almost at the end. What's needed for digital learning? For the institutions and teachers, we need a learning management system. There are many learning management systems, but as an institution, if you're going to do digital learning, you need some kind of learning management system. We need content authoring systems for our staff to develop content, or we can use external content. There's a lot of external content available, including just downloading PowerPoint slides. We need motivated students as teachers who are motivated to teach online. We need training and support. We need systems and connectivity. Then what's needed for digital learning by students? We need the devices, right? So in order to learn, students need some kind of device, a PC or a phone. You have to look at the cost. Can they afford it? Is it reliable? Very often students say my phone is broken or my computer is broken, I can't access. Then they need connectivity at their location. The speed should be good enough, the reliability should be good enough, and of course the cost. And then motivation. Are students motivated to learn digitally? Or do they say, I want to come for a lecture and sit in front of a lecturer? What about time management? Where when you say the lecture is recorded, you can look at it at any time. Does any time mean not today and not tomorrow, right? Every day, not today. And peer pressure, right? Students do many things due to peer pressure, not only bad things, but good things. So how can we get peer pressure into digital learning? Then in summary, digital learning should be our objective. I think it's quite clear that the technology can help us. It doesn't mean that we have to use technology. We use the technology when we think it is helping us. But there are some obstacles: technology, cost, the effort. It takes a lot of effort to do digital learning. It's not as easy. The easy thing in the world is to pick up a piece of chalk and get in front of a blackboard. Then fear and motivation. So thank you. I'm Gihan. You may contact me if needed.
Thank you, Professor Dias. That was indeed an important section that we touched upon with Professor Dias. Professor, I need to ask you a question. Now, in digital education, another aspect that most of us are concerned about is the security aspect, especially when it comes to online testing and assessments. So I would like to know what security threats you find in digital education and how we overcome those threats.
Right, that's a very good question. Thank you. So security, we can look at it from 2 points. One is, now we are moving all of this onto digital. What happens if something happens to our systems? We are running everything on a learning management system. Our marks are there, everything is there, the exams are there. What happens if somebody gets in and either deletes everything, or maybe they go in there and happily change marks or something like that? So that is one area, and this is same as security in any other IT system. We need to make sure that any IT system is secure. The second is from the point of view of the student, right? Or actually not so much the point of view. When we talk to students, when we interact with students, we need to make sure that we are interacting with the correct person and not with the someone else. So I think these are 2 areas we need to look at: the security of the our IT systems and our security or the verification, authentication when we are talking with students.
Thank you very much, Professor. Since Professor Dias talked about different solutions and different infrastructure required, so I would like to invite now one of the telcos who's on board today, Mr. Rishad Mansoor, the General Manager, the Sales and Marketing of Lanka Bell, present your solutions available for the digital education. Over to you, Rishad.
Good evening once again. Okay, the speakers touched on many aspects of online education and online learning, and one aspect that came out clearly was the requirement in technology and Wi-Fi to make digital learning possible. So Bell 4G from Lanka Bell is our home broadband product through which students and teachers can connect and learn. Next slide, please. Yes, I'll just take you through 3 of our packages just to show you the value for money aspect of our product. Bell 4G is all about providing you with high-speed, reliable internet at the best value for money. So what we focus on is providing you with the best value for money. So the lowest pack that we have is just for 950 rupees a month. You get 55 GB. Half of it will be anytime, half of it will be nighttime, and it averages to about 17 rupees per GB. The same average is maintained in the next pack, that is 37 GB. Again, half anytime, half nighttime for 1350. And again, you have another pack for just rupees 2,650. That is, you get 154 GB. Again, half anytime, half nighttime. Now the important aspect is, okay, if you have a specific learning requirement, in the sense you want to access education sites, we also have some add-on interesting bonuses that you can use. We have 50 GB, 100 GB, 150 GB, and 200 GB data bundles that will ride on any of these packs, where you can buy for as low as 250 rupees a month. It basically averages to about 4 to 5 rupees per GB for the education aspect only. In addition to that, how we add value is, next slide please. Now, apart from these three packages, you also have other packages which anyone can request and get. We have a 200 GB pack, then we go up to unlimited, providing unlimited packages as well. Okay, this is a bonus, lifetime bonus offer, where you can be on any Bell 4G package. For your loyalty, we will give you free data as we go along. That is, at the end of 12 months, we'll add 5 GB to your monthly quota. At the end of 24 months, we will make the 5 GB 7 GB getting added to your monthly quota. At the end of 36 months, it will become 9 GB of free data added to your monthly quota. And at the end of 48 months, you will have 11 GB of monthly free data added to your quota for lifetime. Next slide, please. Now, moving on from, okay, that's how we provide connectivity and home broadband and Wi-Fi at the best value for money. Now, here what we are doing is we are introducing a new product for teachers and students. It's okay. The site is www.tutioncenter.lk. You can please feel free to go to the site and check it out. This is where we make teachers and students meet. Initially, we will be facilitating Sri Lankan O-levels and Sri Lankan A-levels. So next slide, please. Okay, this is how the slide will look. You can pick whether you are a student or a teacher, and you can register. Next slide, please. Yes, you can provide just basic information and register. NIC preferred, but NIC is not mandatory. We have kept it open because certain O-level students may not have NIC, so we kept it open. Next slide, please. Yes, if you're a student, you can go pick the subjects that you are going to study for, and then connect with teachers. Next slide, please. If you're a teacher, you can, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, if you're a teacher, you can register and mention the subjects that you teach. And we will make students and teachers meet here, and we will go beyond that and facilitate lectures and so on. If you need further inquiries, you can always call us on 1575, that's 1575, or you can email us on bellcare@mail.lankabell.com. That's bellcare@mail.lankabell.com, or you can call us on 1575. Thank you.
So thank you, Rishad. The next speaker is Mr. Rehan Uddin, the Regional Head of Education ACCA. So he will basically touch upon online education from a global perspective and learning lessons from international digital education systems. So Rehan, over to you for your presentation.
Hi, thank you, Upal. Thank you, FITIS, on behalf of ACCA for giving me an opportunity to share my views on the future of digital education. Just to confirm, Upal, can you share my? Can you see my slides? on the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Wonderful, excellent. So I'll first of all talk very briefly about some of the new trends and innovation which we are seeing in digital education, and then I would share some of the ways of how ACCA is responding to those trends and innovations. So I won't take a lot of time as well. So I'm sure you must be seeing my second slide, which is where I'm giving some where I want to share some examples of innovations in education and learning, and I'm sure you will find them very helpful, and you must be able to relate with them as well. So the first innovation or trend which we are seeing is around the concept of flexible learning. And this is where the concept of flipped classrooms kicks in, and the students learn and pursue theoretical knowledge outside of the classroom, and the actual classroom is used to discuss ideas, debate, and learn. So this flexible learning is something which is becoming now very common. Then comes personalized learning. Increasingly we are also seeing that the students learning with the tools and solutions that adapt to their specific needs rather than one size fits all approach to the education which we have seen in the past. Experiential learner, increasingly employers are demanding work ready professionals, and this means that students need to be ready to apply their knowledge in the real world. And this means that experiential learning would become more common in education as students are taught not just the theory but the employability and the practical skills that will enable them to succeed in the workplace as well. Data-led learning, big data and analytics will play a greater role in helping educators and schools in understanding student behavior and performance, understanding their needs, habits, and identify risks earlier, and therefore provide them with more effective and earlier interventions. Social or connected learning, this is also something which is becoming very common. As students move from physical classrooms to online, the social element aspect becomes very important, and we are seeing that through even our own initiatives like ACCX and the ACCA student learning community, where students embark on learning in a very connected and global world, and they want to interact with their peers as well. And last but not the least, computer based examinations. So we believe that we'll see a greater shift and trend towards computer based examination, which will reflect better the needs and the requirements of the modern workplace, and also the environment in which the students are learning in. So let me share with you some of the ways in which ACCA is responding to these trends and innovations. So I've divided these areas into 4 parts. So first, I'll share with you very briefly how ACCA is shaping its examinations. How we are making changes and bringing innovations in our invigilation and proctoring. So the introduction of remote invigilators and proctors in a scenario where the exam centers are disrupted. What are the learning, what are the changes in the learning that are being made, especially by our learning partners who are teaching our students. And similarly, what ACCA is doing in this current situation for the capacity building of the tutors in this digital world. So very briefly, I'll talk through each of them. First of all, in terms of examinations, ACCA, just to give you a bit of idea, ACCA has almost moved all of our pen and paper exams to computer-based examinations. Even our professional exams are right now in the process of moving to the computer-based examination. So we have introduced computer-based examinations in a few markets like UK, Ireland, and Czech Republic. But I think towards, in the next 12 months or so, the computer-based, our entire qualification would have computer-based examinations, including Sri Lanka as well. And, the thing which is very important is that, these exams really reflect, the workplace. So on your screen, you can see an example of our strategic business leader computer-based examination, and you can see how that reflects the desktop of a professional as well. Where you'll find that the professional has to go through a lot of reports, has to go through a lot of news briefings, data, evidences. And just like a professional also has to respond to those requirements in a number of ways. Like, for example, sometimes he or she has to write an email or write a report, or do some do some analysis on a spreadsheet, or create a presentation for the senior leadership. So, this platform or the computer-based examination gives the flexibility to the student, just like, think like a professional, and, the flexibility to choose the right platform for that need as well. So, increasingly you see that the ACCA examination would replicate what an individual is expected to do in a work environment. So I think this is something which is very exciting. The second innovation, and moving to remotely invigilated exams, right now, not only in Sri Lanka, but in most of the markets, the exams at centers are disrupted since March. So what ACCA has announced, and, from the month of June, so from the current month, later this month, we would be moving our examinations gradually to a remote invigilation model. And ACCA has chosen the best remote invigilation model, which means that, it would be very intensive. It would have a lot of controls. So there would be a live, proctor who would be invigilating the examination. Similarly, there would be a lot of, controls built into the entire process, which, including artificial intelligence-based controls as well. So, the AI-based controls would see things like, are there any changes in the background noises of the student, the room in which the student, the student is, are there any lighting changes? Are there any suspicious behaviors being shown by the student? So things like that. So, the remote invigilated exam is again a very extremely important innovation, and something which is very timely as well, considering the current COVID-19 scenario, where the students are not able to sit their examinations in centers. So I think we believe that this flexibility would allow students to, sit their examinations at homes, in their offices, and progress through the exam. Right now the progression of the student has been disrupted because, the center exams cannot be able to take place. The third element which I wanted to share with you is how the learning is changing, and how our learning providers are responding. So, just like, Professor Gyan Dias mentioned, that we also, we need to think about the next steps, after, the post-lockdown scenario. And, I believe that in the post-lockdown scenario, we would see a lot of blended learning. You see, before the COVID-19 happened, worldwide, only 3% of our students were using online learning. But when this COVID-19 happened, the entire, that 3% moved to 100%. So almost across the world, you had almost 1.2 billion learners moving to online learning. And I think that made us realize, what are the benefits of this online learning? What are the challenges? This is not just simply shifting our classroom teaching to an online model where a teacher is just writing on on a whiteboard. I think it requires a change in the pedagogy. It requires a change in the tools. So I think that made us realize that made us very knowledgeable in terms of what online learning is. And I think that is really going to have an impact on the future model, which would definitely be a blended learning model. And I think there would be a number of benefits. So we'll see a better engagement. So, if students are using most of their time at home, learning the content through, the offline lectures, videos, they'll be able to use the time in the classrooms, when they come face to face and meet their friends, meet their teachers, for more, productive discussion. So they'll not discuss the concept, so they'll discuss the application of the concepts in the classrooms. Similarly, I think the access has really improved as well, and we'll see going forward. For ACCA, we have almost 500,000 students in 170 countries. So, for us, it is very important that students in one part of the world have access to learning or tutors in other part of the world as well. So I think from our perspective as a global professional body, I think the access has been something which has really benefited our students. And affordability, fine. Like I said that when there would be kind of a flipped classroom model or a blended learning model, where the time of tutor spent in the classroom is now being reduced and would move to more value-added activities, there would be possibility of reduction in the cost as well. So we see the online courses or the online mode of learning. I think that could be anywhere between 25 to 50% of the face-to-face the courses which we had. So I think this would be something which would be very important. And last but not the least, the capacity building of tutors. So we believe that when everything is moving, so the students are learning in an online environment, I think the capacity building of tutors has to move in a digital way as well. So just to give you an idea, whenever ACCA makes any changes to the qualifications, we try to support our learning partners and the tutors by taking them through train the trainer courses and things like that. And previously we used to do these train the trainers physically. So flying in experts from different parts of the world, the tutors used to attend. But now with the current situation, we were forced to look at in a very different manner, and therefore that made us realize that we need to find some innovative ways to deliver these train the trainers. So what you can see on the screen is a space on our education hub, which is the place where our learning partners and tutors can access. And what we have recently done this month is launched a series of digital train the trainers for our professional level examination. So this is there's content worth up to 100 hours, and I think this is a very a step in the right direction. And I think our tutors would be able to across the world would be able to benefit from this. But I think it would help ACCA act in a very agile manner, and not only ACCA but other professional bodies. If they look at this digital form of capacity building of their tutors, so they don't need to be dependent upon the physical infrastructure, flying in experts, and they can train their tutors very quickly and in a very agile manner. So I think this is something which was the last thing which I wanted to touch upon. So I think as a professional body, ACCA has in a number of areas, like I mentioned, tried to respond to these innovations. And now I'm Upal, very happy to answer if there are any questions.
Thank you, Rehan. As ACCA is one of the largest education providers in the world, engaged with a large student community. So your presentation was very useful for us to know about the digital education from a global perspective, especially about online examinations. So Rehan, one quick question. So what can you say about the dropouts? So when it comes to online examinations, sorry,
Yes.
the online learning compared to the traditional classroom training?
Yes, right. So I think, Upal, it's a good question, very relevant question. In the last 5-6 years, MOOCs have been heavily criticized of their 90-95% dropout rate. Only 5 to 10% students completing those online courses. But I think what this COVID-19 has done, like I mentioned, almost 100% of the students, because of this COVID-19, were forced to move into online learning. So I think what this has done is that it has allowed to, it has forced students to take more responsibility. So I think this is something which the students need to realize as well, that that they cannot afford to be very casual about it. They need to be very focused. They need to be very accountable and responsible. But at the second, on the second element, I think it has also forced the education institutions to look at what are the behaviors which the students are exhibiting. So for example, edX, which is a very a platform for online courses, they did a research, and they found that any video content which is more than 6 to 8 minutes longer, that loses the students' interest. So if you want to keep the students interested, you need to have it in a very bite-sized format, and you need to keep them engaged. So you need to have different sort of ways of engagement. So if you're doing only video lectures or videos, that wouldn't be only sufficient for students to engage. So you need to put in certain engagements, interaction, where the student is interacting with the material as well. So I think what has happened in the last few years is there has been a lot of research on the behaviors of the students and what changes in the tools can be made to keep the students engaged. So I'm sure that in the future we'll see that this dropout ratio reducing very significantly, with students taking more responsibility and the education institutions finding creative ways of keeping the students engaged.
So thank you very much, Rehan. Since a large number of the people are joining this webinar, so I'm sure the most of the attendees would be interested in knowing the different platforms or the solutions provided by telcos to make online education possible. So before I move on to the other speaker, let me now invite Mr. Raveen Tarind, the DGM SME Product Development of Sri Lanka Telecom, to present the solutions available for digital learning. So over to you, Raveen.
Thank you, Paul. Share my screen first. Thank you, Paul. Sri Lanka Telecom, as a national service provider, we understood this situation, and we found solution for those lacking points. So firstly, as Professor Sampath said, we free up eTaksala and the Learn platforms, and we never charge for data if they are using SLT internet connectivity. But still the pain is there, because those are portals but backend running by another platform. Let's say now, for example, as Professor Sampath said, Learn is running through Zoom, because the backend meetings are going through Zoom platform. So still, even though we free up for the portal, but backend Zoom is still deducting your data. So we came to a solution where our own platform SLT Link, the collaborating tool, where we free up data for that platform. So teachers and the students come up to this platform and do their lessons without any data deduction. And we didn't stop there. We got the right track, and we offer two data bundles for very concessionary price. One we offered for 195 rupees 30 GB and 100 GB for 490. Those packages get data for a very concessionary price. Still, I believe that the pain is there, because we found there are people, there are educators who are having students more than 5,000. But if you want to conduct a class online for these 500 people, 5,000 people, you need a platform. You need a platform where the capability is there. So we develop our own product called SLT eSIPHALA and A-Level Copier. Those platforms, the educators can onboard on those platforms, and student can also register there. They can offer their courses to the students, and it's kind of a LMS, and student can do their activities, conduct online classes simultaneously for more than 10,000 people. Not only that, these two platforms, SLT eSIPHALA and A-Level Copier, can top up with you can use our data bundle for 30 GB 195 and 100 GB for 490. Those data bundle for these two platforms, so you have less burden for your data if you are using these platforms. Also, educators can monetize their courses through these platforms, because you know that there are a lot of mass classes, but you don't have platform to monetize your courses. So this is the right place where you can monetize your online classes. I will go through few slides, online slides here. Can you see my web browser? I think you can see, right? Yeah. If you want to
Yes, we can see.
know more about the SLT link, you can go to meet.slt.lk. You can get more detail there, and you can subscribe the packages whatever available in the website. Also, eCPHALA, what I said earlier, our platform where the mass classes and the educators, tertiary educators can conduct classes, do their online tuitions, online tests, and a kind of a LMS platform that is also here, and A-level copier also there. This is specially we narrow down to A-level classes. People having the requirement for the content for A-level classes, you can go and find more details. Broadband portal, you can subscribe our data packages. You can go to internetvas.slt.lk and then go to the get GB, and you can click on data add-ons. You can find two categories. So the first category is Meet Lite and Meet Max. That is for the SLT link, Zoom, Team, WebEx, Skype-like platform. And Edu Lite and Edu Max is for that is study platform like SLT eCPHALA.lk and the A-level copier.lk. Those are the benefits actually we innovatively introduced to our customers, and we make them less problematic in this pandemic situation. You can find more details from our 1212 hotline, or you can install our self-care app to your mobile, and you can subscribe our data packages. Also, you can dial in 0112121212, where you can subscribe these packages. Thank you very much, Rehan.
Thank you, Raveen. Moving on to our next speaker, Dr. Malitha Vijayasundara, the Dean of Faculty of Humanities and Science at SLIT. As an experienced person who is highly involved in online education, he will explain about the challenges of digital education and how to overcome those challenges. So over to you, Dr. Malitha.
We look at the challenges and also the solutions that we came up with. At SLIT, we have a platform similar to Moodle, where we have video lectures uploaded, and we can see here, starting from the beginning of the lockdown up to the end of the semester, we have a fairly good activity on the platform with more than 10,000 students accessing the system daily. So if you look at the stakeholders of online education, we can look at it as students, then the lecturers, then the institutions and universities, and government. So if you look at the issues or challenges faced by students, so some of the challenges are actually technical, because you have coverage issues, you have network speed issues, and due to curfew and so on, the power cuts were not restored very quickly. And then devices. So some students had issues with not having the right device, or this device was not ideal for accessing and taking part in online activities. And also, there is no technical support available at home. So they had to then call someone and then get some technical help. Then there are concerns related to financial constraints due to online access, or having to pay for online access. Actually, some of the telco providers were generous to provide us free access to our portals, which helped us a lot. I think going forward, we should have a national policy on this, and to have affordable access, especially for the university portals. And then the third area for students was psychological. I think some of the students found it very demotivating, not having the classroom environment, and also not having their friends to motivate them. And time management is also a challenge because you're alone, and then you don't have a fixed schedule to study and things like that. Since the friends are not there, you don't have a peer pressure, so that is also not helping. So instructor or the lecturer is not there to supervise you on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, so therefore you are not progressing well sometimes. And at home you have all your siblings, parents and relatives, and that's distracting as well. So so these can be issues for students. If you look at lecturers, I think one area was not having the training for delivering lectures online and also producing content to be delivered online. So these two areas are very serious, because if you are not trained, then you are worried whether you'll do the right thing. So this is one area that we need to focus on. Then the new platforms, because crisis doesn't have any prior notice. So you suddenly roll out a new platform and there's absolutely no training on the platform. So actually we used multiple platforms. Some are synchronous, as Professor Gihan Dias said. We used Moodle and our own video portal as asynchronous method, and then WebEx, Teams and Zoom as the synchronous method where you have live activity. So these three platforms were actually new to some of our lecturers. So we had some challenges in training them online. So technical issues were common when it comes to network coverage, speed and power outages. So these were common issues. And some of the device related challenges were also there. Some lecturers had only their smartphone when the curfew was on. So those challenges are also there. Psychological challenges for the lecturers. So I think if you are a lecturer, you will actually feel this. Not having your students in front is the most demotivating factor. Then time management. Of course, when you are at home, time management is challenging. Not the ideal setting for recordings. So sometimes you have your children popping up from your camera, then distractions at home, and then not having a close monitoring framework. So that means if you are a lecturer, your head of the department has little oversight of how you perform. So these are some of the challenges. Then if you are a university or an organization, a higher education institute, you have other challenges. So your challenges could be, what is your choice of delivery platform? So luckily, I mean, if you start from zero, then it's very challenging because you have to roll out an LMS and then develop from there. But luckily we had an LMS and we were using it for the past 15 years. And our video platform we started using 2 years ago in the hope of moving towards the flipped classroom that Rehan mentioned. So we think the delivery should happen offline, whereas the actual classroom should be used to have more interactive activities. So then the choice of assessment platform. So this is very important because if you are totally online, your exams will have to be held online. So we had to then come up with policies and also certain software solutions like lockdown browsers, where you can't do anything else other than answering your paper. And also it monitors your activity, as Rehan mentioned. So such activity will be recorded, and if there are any suspicious copying or plagiarism happening, then we can actually refer back to the recordings of the webcam. Then hardware. I mean, Professor Amaratunga mentioned some of the universities are not having the right infrastructure and also storage. So actually, when it comes to our video platform, on a daily basis, 3 terabytes of data was consumed by the students. So that's a lot of data. So your bandwidth for that consumption has to be available. Otherwise, they will feel that it's too slow or getting stuck all the time. Then the expertise, the systems and security engineers should be there to set it up. If it was not there, then you're actually in trouble. Then reliability in terms of backups and redundancy. So during the crisis, we had to roll out new backup plans and new redundancy for our server infrastructure. So that is very serious, because if it breaks down, then the whole delivery platform breaks down. Then the policies had to be brought in for online lectures and online examinations. How are the online lectures conducted, and how are the exams conducted? And then once conducted, do we give the full grade for that, or do we have another viva, or do we just give a pass, and so on. Then the internal quality assurance had to be looked at. Then we had to come up with new policies for checking the quality and the assessment of lectures, and also quality of content, and also the student experience when the content is recorded, for example, whether these are exciting enough for the students. And also, if you look at from a government policy point of view, I think we need to have a policy where online delivery is accepted as a accepted mode of delivery. I think UGC India has moved towards giving a ratio. Okay, so this amount of your degree program can be online. This amount has to be face-to-face. So some policy has to be implemented. And also, when it comes to online assessments, what if you have online assessments, what are the things that should be in place in order to consider that online assessment as reliable and accurate? So we can have impersonations, we can have plagiarism, we can have various issues when it comes to online assessments. Then I think some of the telcos address this, a policy on how students should be charged for broadband access when they access their educational sites and content. So I think a policy should be there on that. And then because we have a quality assurance framework for higher education, I think when it comes to online delivery, we need to have added set of quality assurance aspects added to that, because earlier it was actually not considered as a mainstream delivery mode. So since we were talking about coverage, I am showing you how our students accessed our content from a geographical point of view, and you can see the majority is from the Western province, but we had access from other areas as well. I mean, some of the areas are not active, mostly because the students are not there. I think out of our 10,300 students, 9,700 students accessed our content online, which is, I think, a very good achievement, and 600 were not able to access our content. So we will have other mechanisms in place to handle this situation. So thank you. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Malita. A quick question to you.
Yes.
We know that learning is the one aspect of education. Right? The skills development is another significant aspect of education. So from employees' point of view, so what they mainly look at is the employability skills of candidates rather than the qualifications
Yes.
in today's context. So I would like to know whether there is a possibility for us to use the online training for skills development of students.
I think it's a challenging area, because some skills can be developed. Now, I think subject-related practical skills are one set of skills. And then we have 21st century skills, which are also known as soft skills. So these are two categories. So I will first touch upon the first one, that is subject-related practical skills. Now, for example, if you have a engineering lab, for example, strength of materials. So if you cannot do that practical, then how do we handle that situation? So to some extent, this can be handled using simulations. So we actually successfully handled this for electronic engineering and computer engineering using simulations. So some of the engineering labs were simulations, and some were actually conducted by the relevant lecturer and broadcasted live to the students. So they could see the lecturer doing the experiment, and the readings were given so that they can provide feedback on that. And also you may have seen on YouTube and so on, various other activities such as yoga and sports were taught online. But we had challenges in clinical placements. For example, for nursing, if the student has to be in a hospital, learning how you treat a patient, so that cannot be easily simulated. So such cases were there where we had to postpone such activities. And also when it comes to survey camps and site visits for architecture and so on, sometimes it's very difficult to create the same feedback or same feeling of going somewhere and experiencing that. You can't actually recreate it using a camera. But also, if you look at the soft skills side, critical thinking, creativity, some collaboration, these can be actually encouraged online. So whether it's online or offline doesn't really matter. But some areas, for example, social skills, networking, leadership, those may be, there can be challenges in trying to get those developed online.
Thank you very much, Dr. Malitha. We have another telco company on board. Let me now invite Mr. Hindujan.
Thank you, Upul. Let me introduce myself while I'm sharing the presentation. I'm Hindujan and I'm attached to the Mobitel product development team. So let me introduce myself. I'm Hindujan, attached to Mobitel product development team, where we build product for our enterprise market as well as institute education and all those things. Today, the forum is all about digital education. So we are going to talk a little about what we have in terms of digital education and the learning management. So let me share my screen. Hope you all can see my slide, right? So we started way back in 2008 with University of Colombo. We called our product as mLearning. Over the years, we have worked on multiple courses, faculties, and multiple subjects, etc. And in 2018, we introduced another new product called Virtual Academy More. This is more towards the MOOC, concept-based digital learning. Currently, we are working with University of Colombo, PIM, SLIM, IESL, and a couple of schools as well. So now you might be curious, you know how we carried ourselves through these years. You might be wondering what's the product is. So this is how we have built our product. We have taken the learning management part. We have taken the live lecture part. We have combined it together to create mLearning. So on the learning management, we have these online exams where we have about 8 types of exams. We have essay type, we have multiple types. It can be auto-corrected. We have assignments. We have all type of student information. We have messaging platform attached to it, and all those combined, we call this learning management system. And then comes the live lectures, which is currently very popular since due to the COVID situation, where you will be able to sit in a remote place and you will be able to educate students anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. This is how it works. So on the other side, lecturers can sit in their house like I'm sitting here, and they can formulate their courses, they can create their content, they can put the material, and they can start live lectures. And through the online, which is our mLearning portal, which is a cloud-based system, the education content will be distributed or will be transferred to the students who will be sitting in their houses, who will be traveling in the buses. We have seen that as well. Who will be abroad as well. So this is how the platform works. So feature-wise, we have mobile access. You can use your mobile phone. You don't have to go on a computer. We have virtual classroom. We have collaborative platforms. We have reporting system, which is really important when it comes to these kind of learning management platforms. We can give access to parents as well through a mobile application where they can monitor student performance, etc. We have online exams, as I said. So all these set of features are available within the product. So you might be wondering, so how do you deploy it? How do you start the conversation with universities or schools? So first we sit with them, we understand their current practice. So we do not want to change their current practice immediately with digital content. So we learn them, we'll map it out in order to facilitate the digital learning. Also, when they create the program, when they create a digital program, we sit with them and give them our input. So that is very important when it comes to any type of digital platform in deployment. So when they create the program, the input has to be given by the digital service provider correctly so that the program will run smoothly. And also, being a Mobitel as a telco, we provide the full ecosystem as well. We start with the learning laboratories, any type of computers, microphones, etc. We give all the internet facility. If there's a drop in a particular place in a university, we enhance that and give it to lecturers to conduct lectures. And also, as the other telco companies given, we do have student internet packages, so it's been doing even before the COVID issues. And the other key thing is the change management. So how do we support the universities in order to fight the change management? We continuously support them throughout. We don't have a kind of a fees attached to any type of training or any type of support. 24/7, there's a hotline open for students where they will be able to call us anytime. If there's a password issue, if they have any issue with how to log in, how to log out, we will be continuously support them. And that's how we handhold the universities or schools to get into a digital learning space. The challenges we face is mainly based on the adaptation. So as I said, we continuously be there whenever they want. Even deploying a resource throughout their first semester, every weekends, we have done that as well. So we used to do that in order to take them to the digital learning space. Now also what we have seen is the hesitation or the priority given to the digital learning so far, before COVID, I'm talking about before COVID. So what we suggest is always, it's all about, not all about money. People go for smart boards, people, when we see the RFPs, it's all about smart board and ideal scenario. So in Sri Lanka, you have to tweak it a bit. So smart board can be replaced by a simple writing board, which is about 15,000 in the market, whereas smart board will cost you about 5 lakhs. So likewise, there are a lot of things you can do. Even during, I don't know how many of you are aware, so Microsoft has issued free licensing for all the education institute around the world. So if you have a registered institute, if you have a registered certificate, you can get Microsoft licenses where your O365, your Word, Excel, and all those things free, as well as your team licensing is free. But then again, you don't have the LMS part. So what we have done during this time is we have taken those free opportunity and we have combined it with our LMS in order to give our students, our university, cost-effective solutions. So as previous the presenter stated, recently we have gone into a school to implement this particular solution. So the question asked during a last meeting is, the schools are going to start, so why do we need the digital learning platform? So that's why I just wanted to end up with a note. Digital learning is not about learning without coming to classrooms, which currently we are doing. It's about enhancing the learning experience. So I think those universities and all the educations have learned it so far. So going forward, I think Sri Lanka will move towards more of a digital or a hybrid learning platform. Thank you.
Indujan, now I'm moving on to final speaker, Dr. Kitsiri Manchanayake, the immediate past chairman of FITIS and chairman of AIMS group of companies. Doctor, I will start with a question. As an honor of one of the oldest educational institute of Sri Lanka, so you have been successfully offering your programs online, especially postgraduate programs, for last so many years. So how did you make it attractive to the students? We would like to know your experiences with regard to the digital education.
Yeah, Upul, first of all, I would like to thank the entire FITIS and all the people who organized this webinar. And I think we have run out of time now, 15 minutes, so I'll try to wrap up within 5 or 10 minutes. Your question, Upul, basically, we have been doing this online education for the last few years. No, I mean, it has changed a bit, and after this post-COVID-19 situation. But before that, we were, we are into higher education, not the basically school education, but we compelled to do that online education because we got a lot of students from outstation and all over the world. So therefore, we were doing semi, we initially started with we used to send email those tutors and lecture notes and video clips we used to email, and likewise we didn't use the technology well, but for the last 1.5 years we were improving, but now during this COVID situation, during that time we went full online. So, but main problem we have faced is the teachers to train into their skills, improve their skills to fit into this online education. So therefore, we had a tough time, but we managed to overcome because we didn't have a choice. We wanted to complete these courses during the mentioned duration. So therefore, we compel and we put our hard and we get everybody to come in together, and we started, and we are doing at the moment successfully. 100% at the moment our classes are online. We are doing it online. So therefore, we feel that we had some idea. We feel that we don't need a building anymore. We need more spaces anymore. So most of the classes we feel then we can conduct online. So even not only Sri Lanka, we have few students, our PhD level students we have internationally, basically in Myanmar, Bangladesh, India, and even UK. So similarly, we conduct those our classes online with those students. But we have a school management system. So that school management system we have linked with LMS. So now earlier we had only the school management system, but now we have recently we linked with LMS. Now it's very successful. We feel that students participation is 99%, and most of the sessions are interactive sessions, so those are very effective. So the assignments we are getting on time. We have online examinations, so that also exams they are given on time. So our online education is better. We feel that it's better than offline or the classroom education. But we still feel we need some more classroom education as well. In even future, we are not going to stop classroom education 100%, but we at least once a month they have to. Even we have 4 classes in the month. One class we wanted them to come to the institute or the school or the classroom and do it, and the rest they can do online. So I feel, even the school I have seen a lot of international schools, they are into online education. Even at the moment they are having it, but they also had the same problem. The beginning, they didn't have proper infrastructure, they didn't have proper teachers, they didn't have proper skills to go online. But in a short period of time, within a week or 2 or 3, most of the international schools and most of the institute, even my institute, we managed to get those technology on board, and during the curfew time, we managed to go online. Actually, this my personal feeling is this COVID-19 is basically a good thing for us, for basically online education, because now everybody is willing to go for an online education. So we had a fear, the parents had a fear, students had a fear. Oh, what is online? How are we going to do it? It is whether they can learn same thing what we are learning in the classroom, can we do it in online? But now the teachers, parents, and students feel that students are learning better on. I mean, the interactive and their responses are better than classroom education, because basically what my feeling is now, when you get the school students, so they have to come all the way from various part of the country to Colombo school, right? If it is coming to Colombo school, some people get up early in the morning and take the bus or the train and come to Colombo, or the school van and come to to Colombo. So their students are tired for 2-3 hours traveling, and again after school another 2-3 hours traveling, they are getting tired. So therefore, we can suggest this one for the government or whoever the authority, at least once a week or twice a week in future. But first of all, we have to give the correct infrastructure to the school as well as the students, and do online classes, online teaching. And again, we can suggest the tuition masters, tuition classes. But at the moment, as we know, tuition classes are also, there are some classes you get 2,000-3,000 students. But in buildings, various levels of those floors, teacher is in one floor and the others are in the rest of the floors. But sometimes they won't see the teacher. They learn actually, even when you go to the classroom, even they'll learn in online sort of situation. So therefore, the tuition classes also, ideal thing is to have at least 2 classes per month or 3 classes per month, because there are other problems, because if they are not coming to the class, they can't collect the fee. So therefore, they have to come at least 1 or 2 sessions to the class. So likewise, I mean, we can use this. Even my institute, we are very happy with it. We are doing very successfully. Students, new students are joining for these things also. Therefore, I feel this online education or digital education is really helped us to move forward and change our lives. Parents to think differently, students to think differently. So even now, there are a lot of international courses. Now our students are going abroad to learn into the various famous universities, paying big money. So now they can stop it. They can go for even you go to Harvard or Cambridge or wherever. So you can do some online courses over here, because now our students are getting used to online education. I feel that this is a good thing. I think we have run short of a time. Upul, if there's another question, you can throw another question.
Dr. Kitse, thank you very much. So we are running out of time. Right?
Yes,
so
I know that. That's why I want to stop it, wrap up soon.
Okay, so now we have actually come to the final session of this webinar. So I'm going to pick some questions posted by attendees of webinar and direct them to speakers. There are a lot of questions coming in. I think for most of the questions, the speakers have already posted their answers. Right? I'll pick 1 or 2 since we don't have much time. We have already, the time has exceeded. The one question, I think I would like to direct this question to Professor Sampath. Do you think online learning is effective and fair where IT literacy is low, country like Sri Lanka? Can we expect much benefits to rural children from this virtual learning? And for the same questions, I also want to add something. Professor, now when it comes to online teaching, now you were talking about the progress made by you all in terms of online learning and teaching in universities, state universities. So you all have any kind of a rule or rather kind of notional hours that they are supposed to cover both the teachers and the students?
Yes, thank you very much asking this question. Actually, UGC has issued a circular on the 5th of April. This is actually before the Indian UGC. We have issued this, and whatever the subject you teach in universities in our country, so we have asked everybody to teach at least 25% hereafter online. So we have already issued this circular, and all VCs in all public universities agreed on this one, and I hope even in non-state sector will follow this. One survey conducted by Jaffna University in the Faculty of Social Sciences, they have found that 47% of students of this social science faculty, they use their own computers to come online. But to see, they have found that 98% of students come online. To see, they all use their smartphones to come online. So look at this enthusiasm of students coming online and studying. I am 100% agree with Dr. Manchanayake, who just now explained the enthusiasm of students. Actually, as a country, I think we have achieved a lot during this pandemic time. Thank you very much. I don't want to take much time, that's why
So with that, I'm going to conclude today's webinar on accelerating digital education in the digital normal, organized by the FITIS in collaboration with ACCA Sri Lanka. So I take this opportunity to thank all our speakers for joining us today, sharing your valuable thoughts and experiences despite your busy schedules. And a big thank you goes out to all our sponsors of this webinar, and Arunalis, CEO of FITIS, and his team for your wonderful job. I would also like to thank all the attendees of this webinar who join from various parts of the country, and invite all of you to join the upcoming webinars organized by FITIS as well. So once again, thank you everyone, and have a pleasant evening.